Moondrop Void review. First ever headphone review on this channel. Let's get into it. Hey friends, Tim here. Welcome back to my video on Gears Audio, and today, yes, is my first ever headphone review. Now, I do realize there have been other headphone reviews on this channel, but it wasn't made by me. This is my first official headphone review, and to prepare for this momentous occasion, I actually went out and bought myself some headphones that I want to compare to the Void, namely the HE400SE, and I also have the Sennheiser HD560S sitting in the box right there. Besides those, I also already own the HD600, the HD800S, which is my daily driver, the Full Cow Clear, the DT990 Pro, the HD660S, and also a Grado. Now that I've established myself a little bit of relevancy before reviewing this headphone, let's first jump into the build quality of this, alright? So this, I think, is best explained by a story. So when I first got the Moondrop Void, it came in first day in the door, I unboxed it, I hand this thing to my wife, and I asked her how much she thinks this is. And she said $50. This is not a knock on Moondrop's other qualities at all, right? This is just purely on build quality. It feels cheap. Now, I do have to say one thing. This is the original Moondrop Void. There's another version coming out that will address some of the build quality issues. In terms of what issues they're gonna address, I'm not quite sure, but the second version will be built better than the first one. And no, you can no longer buy the first version. And I think if you own the first version, if you're one of the first few who got their Void before, you know, the delay, I think you can also get the second version as replacement as well. More details here though, don't quote me on that. So having said that, I will be skipping over the little details about the build quality because it no longer matters. The second version is what you guys are gonna get. Just know that the first version feels very cheap. With build quality out of the way, let's jump into the sound quality. Now this has a warmer, neutral signature. Very relaxing, very laid back. I enjoy the tuning of this quite a lot. I enjoy it more than the 560S and the HE400SE. Tuning wise, that is. It is the most pleasing to listen to, non-aggressive, non-fatiguing signature you can ever listen to. And it's tonally quite correct. Like vocals come across with good amount of energy, though it doesn't have the most sparkliest of all treble or doesn't have the best female vocals like liveliness, but everything still comes across correct with a warm touch to it. Really nicely tuned first headphone here from Moondrop. The biggest problem with this one comes in the technical performance, the detail level. We'll get more into that later, but let's touch on the little nuances of the tuning first. So starting with the bass. So the bass on Moondrop Void, I would say, is decently strong. It has decent sub-bass rumble, but the bigger part of the bass is in the mid-bass, the thumps and the slam. Now, in terms of how realistic that comes across, this thing is a little bit on the blunt side, doesn't have the most texture out there, but you do get quite a bit of power, and that will satisfy a lot of you guys out there. And at $200, I would say the bass quality is just all right. Like, it's not super impressive, but it's not a negative either. I would say it falls right in line to where, you know, the bass is expected for this price, if you will. Now on to the mid-range, we have a rather, I would say, tamer upper mid-range. Not too tame though. Everything again still comes across very correct and satisfying. Female vocals tend to have a little bit less energy, so they're not quite in your face. They're not gonna be shouty in any way at all. And with the lower mid-range having a little bit of warmth to it as well, really makes the mid-range feels fuller, like male vocals, the cellos, the strings, everything just feels slightly bit fuller and adds to that relaxing feeling that these headphones can give. So yeah, overall, really like the mid-range on this. Now onto a treble area, I would say this is on the very tame side. I wouldn't say it's dark, but it definitely needs a little bit more. Yes, you're not gonna get any treble fatiguiness, but you won't get a lot of micro details from this thing either. But for those of you who are very sensitive to treble, then this might fit your taste nearly perfectly because it's not far too little and it's not too much at the same time. So this will fit some people out there, but for me, it needs more treble. It needs more of it to highlight the micro nuances of the song, and also needs a little bit more to extend the ranges of female vocals and other instruments better. So yeah, decently done treble. Again, nothing way too impressive, but nothing offensive at the same time. Just a good job here. I would say the mid-range overall is my favorite part of the Void's tuning. The tuning on the Moondrop Void is great, but the one biggest thing that's keeping this from being a daily driver or just a headphone that I grab on a regular basis is the technical performance. So let's bring up my scale here for reference. Where does the Moondrop Void land in this detail scale? I would say it lands short of the Sundara. I would say in between the Grado and the Sundara. It doesn't have that much details. The notes, I would say, are more on the blunted side, and with the treble being on the tamer side as well, you lose out on a lot of those little micro nuances in the song, if you will. So yeah, not a lot of things are going for this headphone in the detail department, and it doesn't really look that much better in soundstage or imaging either. Soundstage wise, these things feel, I would say, almost an in-your-head experience, and not only me that feels this. I had my wife listen to this first before me, and even she thought it was a little bit squeezed and congested. And keep in mind, she's not an audio person. She's a general consumer who just haven't tried a lot of headphones or not even in the audio hobby in the first place. Imaging is, you know, with the soundstage being squeezed and the blunted notes, you guys can imagine how the imaging can be. It's really not the most accurate either. But with all that being said, I will echo one thing that Critical said himself in his video, is that this is Moondrop's first headphone. Like, there's gonna be problem when it's the first of anything. So this is within the realm of expectation. I would say tuning wise, they smashed it out of the park for their first one. So the build quality and the detail stuff, all those Moondrop will work and fix over time. I'm highly confident, man. It's Moondrop, super highly confident of that. Just for now, I would say at $200, the valuation is on the lower side. I would still say, you know, if you want it, get it for yourself, listen to how well it's tuned, but don't expect it to be like the best the price can offer or anything like that. It's just a fantastically tuned headphone with mediocre technicalities, but a promising future. There you go. That's the best way I can put the Moondrop Void and the state of Moondrop in the headphone industry. Now on to the comparison segment. We have the Void versus the HE400SE by Sennheiser, and tuning wise, I would say I prefer the Void over the HE400SE. In the bass department, I would say the Void is warmer than the 400SE. While the 400SE does sound more neutral, more correct than the Void, this is more of a flavor differences, if you will. In terms of bass details and bass quality, I would say both are around similar. I don't love the bass on either one of these. This one comes across a little bit thin at time in the bass. It doesn't really feel the most dynamic, if you will. The Void is a little bit blunted. So there are cons to both of these when it comes to the bass. You pick your own flavor and which one you want more, a warmer or a more neutral one. Now when it comes to the mid-range, it is a clear winner to the Void. This thing sounds more correct than the 400SE, and also the note weight on this is nicer as well. Vocals are more realistic on the Void overall, so winner in mid-range. Treble wise, I would say 400SE does it a little bit better. It does have good extension, although not as even and a little bit peaky at times, but you do get micro details, so the 400SE does win here in the treble by a slight margin. This is more relaxing. More people are probably gonna enjoy this treble over this, but if you're looking for better details, this is the one. Now in terms of detail, soundstage, and imaging, the 400SE is a clear winner, has better details, better soundstage, and also better imaging. Though in the soundstage and imaging department, it's not a massive improvement over the Void, but an improvement nonetheless. In terms of which one is more worth the money, for me right now, even though I prefer the tuning of the Void, the 400SE is more worth the money. It is $150, $170, and you can catch it on sale sometimes like $120. So this is really great value, and the tuning is still decent for the price, just not as good as the Void. But the detail level you get on this is it's just better. It's a no-brainer to buy this over the Void at this time, unless you really want something warm, then the Void is gonna be the better choice over this. Now for the Void versus the 560S. Now the 560S is an extremely popular headphone, a lot of raving reviews, and I had so much high hopes when I listened to this, and it's great. It's awesome. I don't like it. Let me explain. I don't like it for one thing. The treble is just hot. It's spicy and it's noticeable in almost every song in my library. I'm gonna say that if you have a library that's more focused on the lower end, you might not notice this as much, but for me, who have a lot of female vocals, a lot of delicate highs, this is too much. And it's not that it's the treble amount, it's where the treble is being highlighted at around like 4, 5, 6K. That region is just a sensitive region for me. So yes, I'm not a fan of the 560S and I wouldn't daily driver it, but I do recognize it has some amazing qualities for the price. We'll explain that in the comparison. So tuning wise, clear winner to the Void for me. The Void just sounds much more pleasing, warm, relaxing. Doesn't have a lot of energy, doesn't have a lot of treble, but it is much easier to listen to than the 560S. Bass-wise, I would say they're about all right in terms of quality. The 560S does have good amount of bass, but it's not really dynamic, same as the Void here. So for bass, I give them a tie. For mid-range, I would say the 560S has better mid-range than the Moondrop Void. It has just more energy in the upper mids, which I like. So slight win for the Sennheiser here. The treble area is a clear win to the Void. The 560S is just too hot. Like I find it unlistenable to a level. Like I don't want to listen to it for too long. That's what I'm trying to say here for the 560S. But now we get to the area that the 560S excels at, and that is detail, soundstage especially, and imaging. It completely runs like 5-10 circles over the Void here. The Void soundstage is very congested. This soundstage is rather wide. Really enjoy the soundstage on this. Imaging is a noticeable improvement over the Void, though not as big of an improvement like the soundstage does. Detail level though is again a clear improvement over the Void as well. So technical performance wise, the 560S is much better than the Void. Now these two come in at exactly the same price. This for me is hard to recommend because me personally, I don't like the tuning of this. And if you have a library that's similar to mine, you have a lot of K-pop female vocals, a lot of delicate little high notes, then the 560S might not be the one you want to blind buy. Just a warning there, it will be fatiguing. Now, if your library focuses more on the lower end instruments, maybe not so much in the female vocal area or the high area, then the 560S is gonna be a better purchase for you. Or if you're not that sensitive to treble in general, then the 560S will be a better purchase for you. All in all, again, pick your flavor. I would still say, even though I don't like the 560S, this is more recommended from me because of how wide the stage is and all that you get with this headphone for the exact same price. But again, with a big caveat that you need to not be sensitive to treble, and your library should focus more on like the lower end of the frequencies as opposed to the higher ends. All right, that is it for this review of the Moondrop Void and the end of my first headphone review. Leave me some thoughts, some feedbacks in the comment section below. More headphone reviews coming up, and I'll be going to a lot of headphone stores to try out a lot more headphones as well to amp up my knowledge in this field so that I can give you guys the best headphone reviews possible. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Bye.
君が笑うだけで何でもできる気がする一緒に